conflict between Israel and Iran, a long and complex entanglement of geopolitical ambitions, religious ideologies, and historical grievances, has simmered for decades, a slow burn of animosity that has shaped the region's landscape and influenced global power dynamics. This rivalry is not merely a clash of nations, it's a struggle for regional dominance, a battle for influence, and a contest over the very future of the Middle East, fought mostly in the shadows. Intelligence agencies engaged in clandestine operations, spies traded secrets in the dead of night, and both nations sought to undermine each other through unconventional means. Proxy forces, cyber attacks, and covert operations defined their rivalry, a constant game of cat and mouse where the stakes were always incredibly high. Each nation carefully calculated its moves, always aware of the potential for miscalculation and escalation, avoiding direct war but never resolving deep animosities. The underlying issues remained unaddressed, festering beneath the surface and fueling the cycle of conflict. Iran backed groups like Hezbollah and Hamas, providing them with funding, training, and weapons to advance its regional agenda and challenge Israeli interests, while Israel was linked to sabotage and assassinations inside Iran. These actions, often shrouded in secrecy, aimed to disrupt Iran's nuclear program and weaken its military capabilities. This uneasy balance kept the region on edge, a powder keg waiting for a spark. The constant threat of violence loomed large, casting a shadow over the lives of millions, with the threat of escalation always present. Any misstep, any act of aggression, could trigger a full-blown conflict with devastating consequences. The main flashpoint, Iran's nuclear program, which Israel saw as an existential threat. The prospect of Iran acquiring nuclear weapons was a red line for Israel, a scenario they vowed to prevent at all costs. Iran claimed peaceful intentions, but secrecy fueled suspicion. The lack of transparency surrounding the program only heightened concerns and deepened mistrust. In June 2025, everything changed. The delicate balance of power shattered, and the region plunged into a new era of uncertainty. The shadow war burst into the open as skirmishes and targeted strikes escalated. What began as covert operations quickly spiraled into a series of increasingly aggressive military actions. Rhetoric hardened, and the fragile status quo collapsed. Diplomatic efforts faltered, negotiations broke down, and the path to de-escalation seemed increasingly narrow. The world watched anxiously as Israel launched Operation Rising Lion, open airstrikes on Iranian military and nuclear sites. These were no longer covert actions. They were direct attacks on Iranian soil. The gloves were off, and the conflict had entered a new and dangerous phase. The strikes caused significant damage and panic among civilians. The specter of war had become a reality, forcing people to flee their homes and seek safety. The era of indirect conflict was over. A new, more dangerous chapter had begun. The world braced for Iran's response, and for the possibility that global powers, especially the United States, could be drawn into a widening war. The conflict threatened to engulf the entire region and beyond, with potentially catastrophic consequences. The stakes had never been higher. The Middle East stood on the brink of a conflict with global consequences. The world held its breath, hoping for a miracle while fearing the worst. On June 21, 2025, a date that would forever be etched in the annals of international relations, the world watched with bated breath as simmering tensions finally reached a boiling point. The geopolitical landscape, already fraught with uncertainty, was about to undergo a seismic shift. The United States, after months of careful deliberation and strategic planning, entered the conflict directly. This marked a significant departure from previous policy and signaled a new phase in the escalating crisis. American forces launched powerful airstrikes, a coordinated and meticulously planned assault designed to cripple Iran's nuclear capabilities. The skies above Iran became a theater of war as advanced military aircraft unleashed their payloads. Against Iran's key nuclear facilities, the very heart of its controversial nuclear program, Fordo, a deeply fortified underground facility, Natanz, a sprawling uranium enrichment complex, and Isfahan, a critical research and development hub. This was the first direct U.S. attack, a bold and decisive move that shattered the long-held status quo. On Iranian territory in the crisis, a clear violation of sovereignty that sent shockwaves across the globe. The message was unmistakable, a firm and unwavering commitment to preventing Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons. The U.S. would use force, if necessary, to stop Iran's nuclear ambitions, a goal that Washington deemed vital to regional and global security. The world held its breath, paralyzed by a mixture of fear and anticipation, as a regional conflict became a global crisis, threatening to engulf the entire world in a devastating war. The targets were central, carefully selected based on intelligence assessments and strategic considerations, to Iran's uranium enrichment efforts, the very core of its nuclear program, especially Fordo, buried deep in a mountain, designed to withstand even the most powerful attacks. The operation used advanced stealth bombers, cutting-edge technology designed to evade Iranian air defenses, highlighting the seriousness and precision of the mission, a testament to the U.S. military's capabilities. The strikes stunned the world, leaving leaders scrambling to assess the implications of this unprecedented act, marking a dramatic escalation, a dangerous gamble with potentially catastrophic consequences. For years, analysts feared direct U.S.-Iran war, a scenario that many had dismissed as unthinkable. Now it was reality, a stark and unsettling truth that could no longer be ignored. The stakes soared, reaching unprecedented levels as the world teetered on the brink of a major conflict, and all eyes turned to Iran's next move, waiting to see how Tehran would respond to this audacious attack. Would this spark a wider war, drawing in other regional powers and escalating the conflict to unimaginable proportions, or force a diplomatic breakthrough, compelling both sides to return to the negotiating table and seek a peaceful resolution? The answer would shape the future of the region, determining whether it would descend into further chaos or find a path toward stability, and the world, impacting global security, economic stability, and the very fabric of international relations. In the immediate aftermath of the strikes, a tense calm settled over the region. The dust hadn't even begun to settle, and the full extent of the damage was still unknown. President Donald Trump, in a move that captivated audiences worldwide, addressed the nation and the world from the White House. With a tone of unwavering resolve, he declared the operation a spectacular military success, confidently claiming that Iran's most critical nuclear sites were completely obliterated, effectively dismantling their immediate capacity to develop nuclear weapons. Trump then issued a stern warning directly to Tehran, making it unequivocally clear that the U.S. had identified and prepared 52 additional targets ready to be engaged should Iran choose to retaliate in any way. His message was clear, a firm and decisive declaration: de-escalate immediately and unconditionally, or face the full and overwhelming force of the United States military. Trump framed the strikes not as an act of aggression, but as a necessary defensive move to prevent a nuclear-armed Iran from destabilizing the region and threatening global security, forcefully insisting that, as a result of these actions, the world was now demonstrably safer. He extended a call for peace and de-escalation, but only on American terms and conditions, a peace perpetually under the shadow of overwhelming U.S. military might. The world waited with bated breath. Would Iran be willing to come to the negotiation table, or would the situation continue to spiral further out of control, leading to a wider and more devastating conflict? The stakes were now undeniably global, and the immediate future hinged on Iran's next move and response. The possibility of diplomacy, however fragile, remained, but the looming threat of a full-scale war hung heavy in the air. The world watched with a mixture of apprehension and anticipation, uncertain and anxious about what the immediate future would bring. The U.S. strikes were notable for their use of the GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrator, the bunker buster. This 30,000-pound bomb is designed to destroy deeply buried targets, like Fordo's mountain facility. Its deployment sent a chilling message: no site is safe from American air power. The bunker buster's use marked a turning point in modern warfare, blurring lines between conventional and strategic weapons. President Trump highlighted this capability, emphasizing U.S. technological superiority. The message: resistance is futile. America can strike anywhere, anytime. The world took note, and rivals began rethinking their own defenses. The arms race had entered a new phase. The future of warfare and global security had changed overnight. While U.S. bombs hit nuclear sites, Israel struck at Iran's leadership. On June 21st, Israeli forces killed two senior IRGC Quds Force commanders, Saeed Izzadi and Behnam Shahriari. These targeted assassinations dealt a blow to Iran's military command and its network of proxy forces. Israel's message: its reach extends deep into Iran and no leader is safe. This was a dramatic escalation of Israel's long-running campaign to weaken Iran's influence. The strikes aimed to sow fear and disrupt Iran's ability to coordinate its regional allies. Combined with U.S. attacks, Iran's regime faced pressure from all sides. The psychological impact was as great as the military one. Iran's leadership now faced a crisis of confidence and security. In response, Iran's foreign minister issued a stark warning to the U.S. He condemned the strikes as blatant aggression and warned that deeper American involvement would endanger the entire region. Iran accused the U.S. of already aiding Israeli attacks, seeking to rally global opinion against Washington. The message further escalation would trigger a broader, more destructive war. Iran vowed to defend its sovereignty and respond forcefully if provoked. The world listened as tensions soared. The warning failed to deter U.S. action, but set the stage for possible retaliation. The conflict's next phase was now in Iran's hands. The U.S. strikes split the world. European allies urged restraint and called for diplomacy, fearing a catastrophic regional war. Russia and China condemned the attacks as violations of international law, backing Iran and challenging U.S. dominance. They demanded an emergency UN Security Council meeting. Meanwhile, key U.S. allies in the Middle East, like Saudi Arabia and the UAE, quietly welcomed the move against their rival Iran. The crisis had become a global flashpoint, with no unified response. Diplomatic solutions seemed elusive as divisions deepened. The region teetered on a knife's edge. The world's ability to prevent further escalation was in doubt. Amid the airstrikes, ordinary Iranians paid the price. Panic swept Tehran as Israeli attacks hit military sites and nuclear sites, triggering a mass exodus. Over 100,000 people fled the capital in days, seeking safety from the violence. Infrastructure crumbled, power outages, water shortages, and chaos on the roads. The government struggled to control the narrative, but fear overwhelmed official reassurances. Aid groups rushed to help the displaced, but the humanitarian crisis grew. For civilians, survival, not politics, became the only priority. As of June 22, 2025, the Middle East stands at a crossroads. The shadow war is over. Open conflict has begun. Iran faces a choice: negotiate from weakness or retaliate and risk a wider war. The world watches, hoping for diplomacy but bracing for escalation. The risk of miscalculation is high, and a single mistake could have global consequences. The events of June 21st have reshaped the region's future. The coming days will determine if this is the start of a devastating war, or a violent path to a fragile peace. For now, the world can only wait and hope.